Okay, fuck the United States, Israel, and Argentina, as well as every single country that abstained for voting for reparations. Gonna let a vote in the United Nations for reparations for the descendants of chattel slavery, also calling it the greatest crime against humanity. And every single country that abstained from voting, that stuck their head in the sand, needs to be shamed just as much as the ones who voted no, because all of their racial politics are still extremely fucked up and they're trying to avoid accountability for what they did in the past that got them to be that way. Let's first look at the three countries that voted no, that the Black descendants of slavery are not owed reparations. So much of the US economy is still reliant on the exploitation of Black people, who make up a disproportionate amount of the prison population, which the law allows to work for free. The entire economy of the US, from hundreds of years before it became an independent country, was founded on slavery. The banks that are consistently able to deny loans to Black people and other people of color, well, these banks' wealth was extracted from their ancestors. And for anyone who's surprised by Argentina because it is a Latin country, I wasn't. Ethnically, they are majority European. They used to have plenty of Black folks, but let me just say that that's not the case anymore. There were policies that made that happen. And Argentina continues to try to claim the benefits of Latinidad while denying the racism in its past. And as for is not real, well, if they showed even a bit of favorable intent toward that resolution, then they'd have to admit that what they're doing to Palestinian people is, well, very similar to what the resolution was about. Now let's move on to the abstentions. All of Europe abstained. All of it. And that makes so much sense because they like to pretend that racism is not a problem. And if they just don't talk about it for long enough, everybody is going to forget that it was European countries who started the slave trade. The US didn't exist when the slave trade started in the 15 and 1600s. No. That was all you, Spain, Portugal, Britain. Y'all had the insane idea of kidnapping and trafficking people across an entire ocean because y'all unalived so many of the indigenous people of the Americas and you didn't want to do the work yourselves. That was crazy. Who would even come up with such an idea? It's nuts. And the British ambassador actually said, there is no need to compare atrocities. 15 million people were displaced from West Africa. 2 million died during the Middle Passage. And the hundreds of millions of their descendants who were born into slavery, segregation, and societies that don't value them as equals, well, that's hundreds of millions of people. If all you European countries can recognize that the Holocaust was a grave crime against humanity because 11 million Jewish people, Roma people, LGBTQ people, and other minorities were unalived, you will have to admit that the hundreds of millions of people affected by the slave trade. I'm just saying, there's no need to compare. Well, you got to at least admit that the scale is also insane. And then let's move on to the Asian countries, because I'm actually really freaking disappointed in some of you. Japan. This didn't surprise me. Japan doesn't surprise me because they do whatever the white people do. They learned their fascism from Hitler and Mussolini. When they were still a baby imperialist country during the 1800s, they studied what the Europeans did. They did what the Europeans did, and that's how they conquered Manchuria, Korea. Japan also really likes to stick its head in the sand about things. China, Korea, the Philippines, Taiwan, actually most of Southeast Asia would like to have a word with you, Japan, because if you admit that what was done to African slaves was wrong, then you'll also have to admit that what you did to all of the countries I just listed was crazy. Also, Cambodia, what? I feel like you guys of all people would know better. And as for the people who said that China voting yes is not a good thing, like sure, China is trying to maintain a good relationship with most African countries. Sure, they might have their eyes on the mines. They might want a little bit of copper. But would you rather they have voted no? I'm not going to glaze China too much for this, but I am going to shame Japan and Cambodia because what the fuck?